Hello, my friend. Hello, and welcome to episode number 117 of PCOS Mindset Coaching. And today we are going to talk about, is it emotional eating or is it habitual eating? And why does it matter what kind of eating it is, right? I am Dr. Rashmi Pawar, and in case you don't know me, I have been an OBGYN for almost 15 years of my life, and I've seen so many PCOS women unnecessarily subjecting themselves with so many needles, so many tests, so many complications in pregnancy that I decided that I need to help them before they get pregnant. And that's why I started working on like losing weight for myself. And I learned this amazing skill of managing my mind around my food and my habits so that I am healthy, my periods are regular, my skin is good, I'm fit, normal weight, and I'm just overall healthy. And I figured this out for myself and I want to help you. So, in today's podcast, we are going to talk about emotional eating versus habitual eating. But before that, I just want to give you a quick update about my life. I am in UAE. It's May has started of 2024. I don't know when you will listen to this podcast, but whenever you listen, that's where I am while I'm recording this podcast. And I am sort of an procrastinator. So I have started this podcast like I think 3 years, no, in 2021, I think. So like my plan was to release one episode every week, but being a physician and like a physician mind, I somehow reached like 117 episodes. This is 117. So I'm pretty okay. Like today, I was like, um, it was on my plan to record this podcast, and I was like, oh my God, I need to create some content. And I had already recorded some content for my Instagram. And I was like, oh, that was something which my brain came up with. So why can't I just use that? So there it is. Uh, my podcast, my intellectual property of emotional eating and habitual eating. This is something which I came across because I was coaching a client and she has been working on losing weight. And I always asked her like she's trying to lose some weight and she could lose like 20 pounds when the year started, and like she's stuck at a plateau for almost weeks now. And I always ask her like what happened, like why are you not able to lose weight? And there'll always be the weekends and the festivities, which will bring in unpredictability for her. And I will always ask her, like, was it an emotional episode? Like, do you know what emotion you were experiencing? And she said, no, I think it was just habitual. Like, I'm just used to, like, whenever I meet people, I eat food. So that's where I was like, oh, like, even the habitual eating per se is sort of emotional. It started emotional eating, and then we got into this habit of eating emotionally. But like when we are trying to do this work of mindful eating and you try to examine why do you eat the way you eat, you might be able to capture some emotions and then you can label that as emotional eating, like very much like I ate emotionally. And sometimes it's like you feel like it's powerless, like you don't even know why you're eating this, right? So that could be just like habitual eating. So you want to always check in at some point when you're doing the mindful eating work, whether it is emotional or habitual. Because the way I teach mindful eating, and if you have been following me for quite some time, I teach you to plan your meals and eat as planned. Now, for me, what happened was like the planning part, my brain used to resist it a lot. But somehow I managed to plan and then I lost weight. So I know the value of planning and eating as planned, because when you are planning your meals, what happens is you are using your prefrontal cortex, your highest brain. And once the highest brain is involved, what happens is every other part of your brain should comply. But that doesn't happen. The highest brain checks out, and the emotional brain is controlling everything most of the time. So I started doing the planning work, but what started happening was I was not following the plan. And then I used to like be very harsh the way I used to talk about myself. Like I remember this one time I picked up my daughter from school and she was holding a lollipop because she got a lollipop in school. Oh, the schools here. Parents are always giving candies of some kind, not the schools, but so the teacher will not give in her class. Most of, like, at least her EY1 teacher was not giving her candies in the class. They would be given to take home and then you can eat it whatever you want. But the EY2 teacher lets them eat. So I'm not okay with it. But then, anyway, so EY1, when she was like, she had a lollipop and she was like, I want to eat, mama. And then she started licking it and she didn't like it. So she gave it to me and she was like, here you go, mama, you have it. And it was in my hand. And I'm driving her back home and I just licked it. And then I had a coaching call with with my coach, and I told her that this is not okay. How could I do this? I had a plan, and I I'm a weight loss coach. What kind of coach I am? I'm a doctor. How will I support my clients and my patients when I do such a thing? Very harsh. And my coach was like, "Oh my God, stop it. You already know how to lose weight. It's not like something which you don't know. Plus, you are a doctor. So what is the big deal when you lick it?" It's like I was like, oh, this can't happen again because if I am okay with this sort of behavior, that means this behavior will worsen. And she was like, okay, that is like child talk. Like, who disciplines their children that way? Would you discipline your own child that way? And I was like, oh, no, I love my child. I would never speak like this to her. And then my coach told me, okay, you know what? Just stop planning. Just eat whatever you want for at least a week and see how that goes. And I was actually like shocked. I was like, eat whatever you want after like documenting everything, writing down what I eat and everything. Eat whatever you want. That's like so scary. So one meal after our conversation, I ate and very reluctantly. And I was like, 2 meals passed, 3 meals passed. I was like, okay, this can't be. I at least need to write down what I'm eating. So I started writing down what I'm eating. And slowly, what started happening was like, I started asking myself question like, okay, why did you eat this? How was it amazing? What was so good about this food that you have eaten? Whatever you want, eat whatever you want. That was the first instruction. And then what was so amazing about this food that you have eaten? And after that, I was like asking myself, okay, would you like to eat the same thing again? Would you? Like as if I'm bringing out the child in me out after every meal who eats whatever she wants and ask her how did it really help you and how it was amazing about it and would you like to eat this? And sometimes she would say, yeah, it is good. I would like to have this again. And sometimes she'd be like, no, I didn't like this particular taste about it. I don't want you to put this in it. Or I don't want it. It was really bad. And then I started writing, would you like to eat this again part? And then I started following those indirectly. There was no pressure. So I started calling this as indirect planning. And I teach my clients to do that. If you come in a coaching program with me, you would never be forced to eat anything. So you just have to write down what you have eaten and we have to get curious. Why did you eat that? And after you get curious, you just like ask yourself, would you like to eat this again? Basic groundwork. This is the basic work that my clients have to do every day. I do this work every day. And it has been so liberating for me. And unfortunately, most brains, the way they are, because we're so strict, this judgmental part in us is so loud, she will come to attack. So you need to, when you're getting curious about every food, so don't let your judgmental brain attack, first of all. Like you need to first practice that habit. And most adult human beings, forget PCOS women, most adult human beings don't have the skill of being nice to themselves. That's just like a rare thing, unless they were taught that. None of us were taught that. We just produce this critical self in us, and she just comes and attacks us and like is the strict mom in us. Even when our mom was probably not that strict, we just create this personality who is strict. So we need to tell her that thank you very much. I appreciate your opinion, but I'm not going to feel bad because emotional eaters like me and you, my listener who is listening to this, when we feel bad, when we are shaming ourselves, what we do is we eat emotionally. So it's just like a vicious cycle. So we need to interrupt it with like no shaming, taking a pledge, taking a promise that we will not shame ourselves. Now, the doesn't know how to do that, right? Like you will not know how to do that. And that's why you need to be in a coaching relationship where I can hold that space for you. And I'm like, okay, stop judging yourself. I'm not going to ever judge you. Like, I know you're capable of doing all these amazing things that you want to do, 100%, but don't judge yourself. Just don't speak to my client like this, right? Like I'll tell my daughter when she like by mistake she's scratching herself so much because a mosquito bit her and then it's like blood is coming. I'm like, hey Mia, you can't hurt my child like this. You have to take care of my child. I'm I'm like talking to her as if like she has to take care of the child in her, the body that she has. So I tell my client, please don't talk to my client like that, right? Like that judgmental part needs to be told. So that part is the first part. And then you bring out the curious part in you. And then the curious part, you need to ask whether it is emotional eating or is it habitual eating. Now, whenever you plan, most of the times in the beginning, you will not follow the plan, right? That's why I teach this indirect planning. In fact, if you tell your brain you're supposed to eat this, it's going to want to eat everything else but that. So that's why I have stopped telling my clients to plan directly first. First step is to eat whatever you want, then get curious and understand that and ask yourself, would you like to eat that again? That way you're sort of indirectly planning and with love, not with fear. Now, even if you have this indirect plan in place, which you're aware of, like, oh, this is what I sort of decided. I probably didn't write it in my journal, but I know this is what I'm supposed to eat. You are going to start that judgmental part. So you'll have to keep that part aside. And every time you eat something out of plan, you need to get curious about whether was there some emotional event happening around that time or was it just a habit? Because the way you deal with each one of them is different. There is a different treatment plan for emotional eating and a different treatment plan for habitual eating. So if it is emotional eating, you need to understand what emotion that your brain was trying to escape or suppress with food. Because food is our lifelong coping mechanism. Like the moment you were born, you were programmed to get breast milk. So suck. There you have a sucking reflex, very strong sucking reflex. We like the child, even if you flick the mouth of the child like this on the side, like if you're listening to me on a podcast, you can check my movements on my YouTube podcast. So if you're flicking your child's mouth on one side, the child head will turn on this side. Similarly, if you're flicking here, it will turn like that. That's called sucking reflex. So it's so strong wired that because food means not just energy, food also means emotional support, comfort. So that's why there is this connection between food and comfort. Now, it can get triggered like while growing up, food was there. Then mothers always soothe us with food all the time. In any sort of anything happens, let me give you some food. Most mothers are like that. And that continues. Even when we are in school and college, we continue eating. Like I have had all of that emotional eating, and I'm sure you have it too. Like if you're not aware of it, like if you come on a session with me, you will tell me all these things, all these memories will come back. So it can show up with just one sentence like, oh, it's so tasty, it's so amazing, right? Like this client of mine, she had gone to SeaWorld with her grandson, and she had the thought that I should just have the popcorn. It's so amazing. It's so tasty. um, it can be enough for you to get you out of that thought, can get you like that promise that, okay, that food is going to get me out of this negative, whatever emotion I'm feeling, um, that you're experiencing. So get to know what emotion your brain was trying to solve with food. Like yesterday, I was very stressed about I had to again give feedback to someone. And I don't like giving feedback because I'm very critical. So I didn't want to. Like I was like, but then at the same time, I had a deadline. I was like, I have to. But it was so uncomfortable because I know I need to be in a right mindset to give feedback. So I was like, okay, let's just go eat a little bit chips. The chips were right in front of me. I don't even like chips, especially Pringles. I'd seen a video of how Pringles is not real potato chips. So I was like, okay, let me just taste it. Maybe it tastes something like that. Let me just taste it. That was a thought. And I had one chip, and then I had another chip. And then I was like, ooh, you know what? I used to have chips with cheese sandwich, onion cheese sandwich. I used to make so much of it while I was growing up. Like I was in college, I used to just make so much of it and have it. And then that's how I used to go when I was becoming a doctor. So I made a cheese sandwich and I made some tea with sugar. And I was like, oh my God, I need to lose some weight. The vacation weight I have, I'm still having all these cravings. And now this is going to push me off. I was like, doesn't matter. We'll fix it later on. Let's just eat it. And while I was eating, I was like, oh God, this sandwich is not even that good. I need to just stop eating it. And this tea is so bitter. I don't even want to have it. And I interrupted that. And later on, I was like, okay, why did I do this? Why did I have these chips? Why did I have the sandwich? And my brain was trying to solve the the dread of giving feedback, of seeing my thoughts and my opinions about something. And I didn't want to have that. It's very critical of me. I don't like to be that person. And still, I gave myself the feedback, and I realized that I was still experiencing dread while I was doing it. And that food really didn't fucking help me at all. It didn't help me shit, didn't do anything with my dread. I was still feeling it. So, and then I did some of the work, and the next day morning, again, it was not dread, it was just the critical part of me, both of them. So I just like emptied all of my thoughts in my document, and I was like, huh, that's fascinating that there was all this garbage in my mind. And like I realized it's not even garbage. It's just like these are my emotional parts who come up with this sort of reasoning, and they have their own intelligence, each one of them. And I need to respect that. But in all of that, I realized I didn't really need to eat that food. That food didn't serve any purpose. I didn't need energy at that time. I didn't need comforting from food as well, because honestly, it didn't really comfort me because I was still experiencing this, right? Like I had to go through that emotion anyway. And we go through those emotions anyway, but then we get these momentary pleasures with this food. Now, nothing is wrong with it if we were like a child moving and running and jumping and all of that, but we're not, right? Like we are like sedentary. I barely do anything. So I really don't need to eat this much. And I don't need food to comfort me. I can comfort me. I can be nice to me without food, right? Like I could just eat as planned the way my healthy food is. I don't need to eat all these unplanned foods. So you need to call the bluff of your brain who thinks that you need to have this sort of emotional eating. So we need to tell our brain that we are not going to solve this problem with food. We are actually going to try and solve it. And in my case, the way I solve it is like I finish the task. Like it feels dreadful, it feels scary, it feels really uncomfortable. But the thing is, I want to do it. I have a deadline and I have to do it. I committed to myself, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it. And I did it. Like I could have just done it without eating that food as well and like felt proud of myself. But right now I had shame, which I'm like, hmm, the shame served a purpose, right? Like that was a price I had to pay for eating that food because I felt shame. Shame taught me, shame was like so much there that I decided to explore and get curious and try to solve this problem. But sometimes it's just habitual eating. And like that habitual eating also can be something which has probably been suppressed, probably formed because of a lot of suppressed chronic emotions, like especially things like 5 p.m. tea. Like so many Indians, after lunch, some of them would just have tea right away, especially if you're like drowsy. Or like 4 p.m., 5 p.m., so many of them will have tea with sugar. And it's just, it's a habit. And like you will come to know when you are interrupting this habit, all the emotions will come out, like why you had this 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. tea. So, like, even when I'm coaching my clients, sometimes they're like, I'm actually having a good day. It's not an issue at all. And I don't know why this happened. Like, I just had the tea. I don't know why that happened. I think it's habitual. I'm like, okay, that's good to know. So, if it's a habit, that 5 p.m. tea or that morning coffee, whatever is the habitual thing that you think is a problem for you, it's a habit, it's a routine, and it's almost automatic, like a second nature. It's going to happen unconsciously. And like in the beginning, most of the times, what we do is we'll end up judging ourselves like, oh, you can't even control yourself. You're weak. You don't have any willpower, that sort of thing. But if you're like, okay, enough, I'm not going to shame myself. You're curious why that happened. There is no reason. It just happened unconsciously because it's a habit. So, my plan was to do this new thing, right? A new habit, but this old habit just came in. So, do not judge yourself. Do not be disappointed. Do not be shaming yourself for not figuring it out right away. Because as adults, we think we should have it all figured out. And this is typical. Like so many of my clients who are adults, like at least about 30, they would like get so hard on themselves. They'll be like, I can't believe it. I think I should have figured it out by now. Like I had a client the other day, she was like a new coach, and she said, I thought I had processed all my shame. I was like in my mind thinking, how did she process all the shame? Shame is going to be there forever. It's part of you. So we can't really figure it out. But an adult brain will think this new things that it's trying to figure out, that we have the skill set to figure out everything. And that's an error that we have, that we should have figured it out. No, you shouldn't have, because you never did such a thing. So we will pretend like, okay, if I want to eat healthy, I should just be able to eat healthy. Like if I decide to do something healthy today, like not have that 5 p.m. tea, I should be able to not have tea at 5 p.m. But that's not what happens. You need to understand that your brain is used to something and you are asking your brain to do something absolutely new, right? And if you ask, suppose like you are someone who used to have that 5 p.m. tea, and you tell yourself you can't have it, your brain is going to go in full tantrum, full revolt, full rebellion. And it's going to like want you to go for it right away. It's going to ensure you get it. It's not going to stop until you get it. And that's where people tend to use a lot of willpower. But you need to be okay if that happens. Understand that's happening because you have all these sentences in your mind running through, like, you need to get it right now. I'm going to die. You're going to feel like shit. I just need it right now. Hyper urgency will be created. So if that happens, be kind to yourself, be compassionate, and tell your brain, it's okay that happened. Of course, that happened. Because I used to do that every day. You have to treat yourself like a human being, like another human being. You will not treat another human being this way, right? So you can't treat your past self, you can't treat yourself the way you treat You don't even treat anyone this way, right? The way we treat ourselves. So you have to be kind and be like, of course, this happened. We're just going to course correct. So I'm not saying be kind and just like so many of us will think this, right? That, oh, if I just allow this one habit to go on, that means she's gonna get worse. Like she's gonna become careless. My brain will tell me that you'll become careless. We don't want you to be careless. And that's my physician brain. Like any mistake, no mistake allowed. So you have to be careful. So I'm not saying that you have to be, when you're being compassionate, you have to be careless. You are going to course correct. You have to commit to that. Okay, I understand. I want to understand why you do this. And again, tomorrow we're going to try to do this thing, indirect plan that we are trying to have. Because I want to understand how you work, right? Like you have to tell yourself this. So tomorrow, again at 5 p.m., we're not going to have that tea. And we're going to like sit with whatever emotion that comes and see what happens. What I do. Do I like go to another coping mechanism like social media or a cigarette or shopping, or do I just like sit with it and do carry on doing my work? Now, your habit is like a deep rooted tree. I don't know whether I have used this analogy, but your old habit is like a deep rooted tree. So even if you cut the tree, the roots are very deep inside. So if you cut the tree, it's like you're telling your brain that you're not going to have any tea in the at 5 p.m. But the urgency, the desire, which is like the roots, they can't be removed. It's like hardwired in your brain. So they will keep coming. So you need to just like interrupt the reward. So any habit for to continue, there is urge, desire, sorry, there is a thought, there is a desire, and then there is a reward. So let the thought come, let the urgency come, do not reward. Break it at the reward. So so even if you have this deep rooted tree of like the strong habits, you can always start planting a new seed. You can put it in the soil, you can give it some water, give it some sunlight, or like in the beginning, keep it in a tissue paper, moist tissue paper till it sprouts. Then put it in the soil, give it sunlight, give it some fertilizer, and then until you see that one leaf, and then there are roots growing inside. You keep on giving nutrition dedicatedly until the tree grows, and then it blooms, and there's flower, and there's a proper plant, and then it starts becoming into a tree, right? This tree, if you stop giving nutrition, it is going to slowly die, right? But do not let this tree become stronger, which is your older habit. So make your new habit stronger. That is a way to deal with habitual eating. Now, just remember, if you are compassionate with yourself and getting curious on, oh, why did this happen? Why did I eat out of plan? You will find out the fascinating reasons. There's like a movie which happens. It's like it's amazing how our brain works. It's like, oh my God, my brain is doing this thing. It's like you're getting to know a person completely. And there are these different form of therapies. Like there is this internal family system where they talk about this so many parts, emotional parts, childlike parts that we have, um, who are creating so much drama. They're fighting with each other. There's like a whole multiple personality disorder. It's like you have so many personalities in you who are like fighting. So get curious about them, understand them more, speak nicely to them. Because every time you are like, you should not be telling me what to do, like sometimes our brain will do that. Like, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm just going to ignore you. I'm going to hate on you. No, don't do any such thing. Like, understand why she's there, why she's coming. And then just be like, okay, I get your point, but I'm not going to like, no beating. I'm not going to make myself feel bad. I'll try to do what you're asking me to do. Let me get some strong reasons, right? So if you are someone who want to change their emotional relationship with food and start forming an adult like relationship with all your habits and food, please consider working with me. DM me on my Instagram account, Dr. Rashmi Pawar underscore OBGYN underscore coach, and I'll send you a link to book a call with me. so that we can see if you qualify for my 6-month coaching program, where I take you from your current emotional and habitual eating habits to forming a new way of eating that is optimized for your well being. So that's it for today. I will see you next time. Bye bye.